Okay, it's March 5th. This is the Finance Committee meeting. We will be having this completely remote today. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded, and if you're a member of the public and you wish to join the Zoom, you can do that by going to the Lunenburg website, click calendar, find the Finance Committee, and you'll find the agenda where you can sign on. Are there any announcements from the committee? Any announcements from the public? Does the town manager have a report this morning, this evening?
You got to speak up for the record, Jen. You can't just shake your head because
I am working on 2 computers and I'm trying to get my mouse onto the second one to unmute. No.
Do we have to do the roll call?
Oh, yes, you need to
Bring the
roll
meeting to
call
order.
membership.
Yep. Open up the meeting.
March
Anna?
3rd, 2026. March 5th.
Anna, are you here?
I'm here.
Tom,
Yes.
Jay,
Aye.
and I for me. So I don't have the agenda in front of me. I don't know who's doing the first presentation.
Okay, so the first presentation up was Council on Aging.
Hello.
Are you all set, Deb?
Am I to share the PowerPoint or do you have it? I'm not really good at this computer stuff, so let me try to get that up here.
Yes, the host cannot share, so if you can
Okay.
share.
Share.
That's not it.
So the best way is to just before you're sharing, to get your PowerPoint pulled up and ready to
Okay.
go.
Gotcha. Okay. So then,
And now try to share. And you should select the PowerPoint. You should be able to see it there as one of the icons. There you go.
oh,
And then go to slideshow and start the slideshow. And then you should be able to just arrow or hit your space bar to advance.
okay. Thank you, Jen.
You are welcome.
So this is the Council on Aging's FY27 budget presentation. And basically, the department overview, our mission statement is basically we support the seniors community of Lunenburg through advocacy, supportive services, programs, and education, transportation services available to meet the medical, nutritional, and social needs. And I kind of highlighted on outreach services first here, because that's a lot of that people don't hear about and don't know about. You hear about the bingo, see the Mart van, but also the outreach services is kind of behind the scenes where we're helping with hoarding assistance, housing referrals, nursing home, applications for SNAP, fuel assistance, all of that. And then, of course, we have our meal programs and our wellness and education programs, which are vital to our seniors. Our organizational structure is we have the director, which is 40 hours salaried, town funded. The administrative assistant is 40 hours. 12 hours are funded through the Montechusett Area Regional Transit, and 28 hours are funded for the town. And then the sick and vacation are funded through a state formula grant. The outreach coordinator is 36 hours town funded, meal site manager 36 town funded, 2 kitchen aides, 9 hours each a week town funded, and we have the van drivers that are funded through the Montechusett Regional Transit. And this is just some year-over-year trends. And I thought it was very interesting that more and more people are using the vans. If you look at the last figures, the rides, we've already had more rides this year, and we still have 3 more months than over last year. So people are starting to really use the transportation services, which is great. This is our,
Are we doing questions now or at the end? At the end, Jean.
You can ask if it's a quick one, Anna.
Okay, can you go back to the previous slide?
I hope so.
Arrow to the left.
There we go.
Okay, and I apologize. It's been a really busy week, so I didn't have time to review the slides. So FY26. So when you said rides, is that the 1516? Is that the
Yep.
one? Okay.
Yep.
So when you say it's increasing, it has increased by 5 different people.
There is 5 new people, but also, like I said, they're using it more.
Right. I just want to I'm just putting these numbers, and again, I didn't have time to review it because of work schedule. Okay, so
And that's probably going to increase too, because you have the aging population isn't comfortable driving to other locations. So I see that transportation is something that, we'll look at going forward.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown on what the rides are?
We do. I can actually get that for you. I can make us a pie chart or for you that says, how many rides go to medical appointments, how many rides go grocery shopping, how many
Yeah.
rides go to socialization, all of that. So if you'd like that, absolutely, I can provide that for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then this is the budget. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but we're going to stay level funded for this year, is what I'm presenting to you at this time.
Okay.
No questions?
No, you said level funded.
There you go. And then this was just, we included other funding sources. So basically the general fund is the big blue piece of the pie. Formula grant is the orange, and we have the supporters group that raises money to help us out with extra things. And they're the green, and then donations didn't even make the the pie. And this was just explaining, there is a gift fund. If anybody wants to make a donation, make a gift to the Council on Aging, there's the supporters group, the state aid, and the meal program has a revolving account. So there is no line item for food. What they pay for the meals is what we buy the food with.
Is that something that you think that's how it should be, or because
It's working right now.
and the reason I say that is the previous director, she felt like it was an important part for people, of how they feel about themselves. But at some point, I remember last year also maybe I remember conversations about maybe funding a bit, and you had talked, Deb, about some meals you collect more than others, and sometimes it's hard to maintain that service living that way. How is that going?
It's going okay because we keep track of it. So like I said, we know what we're depositing and we know what we're spending. So, maybe funds are going down a little bit, and we have grilled cheese and tomato soup that week. It's like, you adjust the menu to what funds you have.
Okay, it's the reason I say that is I remember this comment from the previous presentation from last year, and maybe conversations we have had, and now we have a full-time site manager, full-time
Meal site manager.
Yeah, so we invested on something, and I want to make sure we are getting the benefits of that full-time person. versus being constrained by, maybe a small amount in funding. That's where, I'm trying to build to this conversation.
Yeah, I think right now we're doing okay. I mean, maybe as things pick up, I don't know, because as they pick up, we still get more, they pay for their meals, the $5. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're starting the early dine in April. So we'll have dinners on Monday, and then we have the lunches on Tuesday and Thursday. And then on Wednesday, we have the breakfast. And then on Fridays is a special, the Veterans Breakfast or the Memory Cafe. We leave it for things like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I just have another question about the services provided where you had the count. What is services? Is that the outreach services? You had events, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's outreach. People that come in for help with their, their fuel assistance application, or a family member that comes in and wants, to know where to buy a life alert. It could be any service that's done through the outreach.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Deb.
Thank you. All right.
All right, so Deb, I think I can stop your sharing, or you can do it.
Let's see.
I gotcha. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, next up was library, and I know Muir is here. He was having a little bit of trouble with his home connection. Hopefully he's got enough bandwidth to share his screen, because Muir, I cannot share as host, unfortunately. You are muted if you are trying to talk.
I am speaking now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. I apologize. I don't have my camera working on this computer.
Oh. I think his connection might be a little unstable.
He's muted, it looks like.
Yeah, but he says, I think he said last time it was he got removed. I think he's,
I can share the presentation if he wants to call in.
okay.
Yeah, I'm having trouble on this connection here. So if
Did you hear that option?
Yeah, and that would be great, actually. Thank you,
Okay,
Ms. Lockwood.
do you need the call-in number?
Yep.
Okay,
If you have it, that would be
I
great.
sure do. 888-475-4499. And the ID is 821-9502-9392.
What is with Google Zoom changing that the presenter can no longer?
It's not. It's a setting on our town account that we
Oh.
cannot change, that we need Zoom. We've got a ticket in with Zoom corporate, like Zoom, because we cannot change the setting for some reason. It looks like it's allowed, but it doesn't allow it.
Okay, whenever he gets here.
Thank you, Anna, for doing that.
Oops. Let's see if I can do just the window of the stuff.
don't see him coming in yet. Oh, here he comes. Okay.
All
Yo.
right.
Oh, and we're
Okay.
hearing you in stereo, Muir, so I
Yep,
think you have to
I'm
close
going
your computer.
there. Okay. No feedback. All right.
No, you're
Okay,
good.
good. Great. Thank you for bearing with me. And glad to join you this evening. I'll be presenting the FY27 preliminary budget for the Lunenburg Public Library. Next slide, please.
I could only figure out how.
And just a quick overview of the library here.
Oh, I really don't.
We provide
Sorry.
access to information resources. There we are.
There we are.
Information resources and services for the entertainment, enrichment, and education of the community. For our statistical purposes, we kind of break that down into circulation services, which would be what you typically think of when you think of the library, books being borrowed. We have many other resources that circulate through the community, library of things items, metal detector, lawn games, cellular hotspots, those types of things. We also break things down into programming services. This would be our many library events. We divide that up into kind of age brackets of children, tweens, teens, and adults. We also offer reference services, which is another traditional library service where someone might have a question. They come to the library for help answering that. And part of that is obviously educational, where our librarian skills typically become a teaching opportunity for anyone who's coming. And we're happy to teach them about the current landscape when it comes to information sources. We also have technology services. So kind of break that down into internet access, public access computers. We offer copy services, print services. We have technology that supports learning, including and especially early literacy. We have 4 early literacy stations in our children's room. We have a beam projector system that projects literacy games in our story craft room. We do technology instruction and one-on-one tech assistance. We also have recently expanded our digital services librarian's position to include outreach services. They specialize in reaching out, which includes a marketing component for library services, obviously, but it also, I think, is more like delivering library services outside the walls of the library. That's really how we conceive of that. This would include visiting places like the schools to talk about our summer reading program, which complements the services that the school department provides. It bridges the gap during the summer break and reinforces what's happening at schools, especially for those young learners who are hopefully reading every day during the summer. But we incentivize that participation, and we offer a bunch of educational and informational and entertainment programming events that happen during summer reading as well. And then, another huge service that the library provides is the facility itself. Certainly functioning in part as a community hub. In that way, community groups come and use our several meeting rooms, and that service is available even outside of the open hours of the library. And I think we're ready for the next slide. Thank you. So just a brief overview of the staffing structure of the library. We have a director and an assistant director who oversee 4 staff librarians, currently have 3 library assistants, and then 3 library pages. So that's 5 of those are technically full-time. The director is the only 40-hour-a-week position at the library. And those 3 library pages are all young, first job employees. So that's kind of like a career preparation situation there. And they each work 8 hours or less a week, typically. Ready for the next slide, unless there are questions. And we
sorry, I did what you told me.
Question, yeah, go ahead.
When you say unfunded library assistant, was that position ever funded, or is this a request that you have? I'm trying to understand that.
This is a position that was created in, I believe it was 2023, although I'm not 100% sure on that. The year that we opened on Fridays, we added 2 library assistant positions in order to do that. We were never able to hire for that second library assistant position, and we ended up rolling the funding for it into expanding the digital services and outreach librarian position.
You still have
part of the reason, yeah.
Oh, you still have the digital library, right? Ms. King.
Yes, she is here. She is the one that will kind of take the lead on going out and delivering services out in the community. That position had been 20 hours a week. When we rolled that funding from the library assistant position into that, we expanded it up to 34. That was an equivalent kind of one-to-one switch over there. Typically, outreach services, which is the area of responsibility that was added to that position, that's typically a professional librarian position that takes care of those things. And so that made a lot more sense as far as recruiting, to be able to offer what's typically organized in this way, with lumped in with digital services in many libraries, as one closer to full-time professional librarian position.
So,
and we did successfully hire for it almost immediately.
Okay, so I wouldn't say like, just based on, I was trying to understand what that was, but it sounds like you made a strategic decision on the funding that you had, and expended someone else's job. So I'm not sure I would call that unfunded library assistant, because you had that position, but you chose to strategically to do something else. Is that correct? This would be a request of a new staff, because we didn't reduce your funding for that position. You strategically made a new position. So therefore, if you want to, this would be a new position. Is that a good another
If I
way
wanted a library assistant, you're saying it would be a new position?
Right, because you're still using the funding that was associated with that position, strategically you made a change.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're trying to say, but.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, so I'm gonna give you a scenario. So when someone says unfunded position, means like, let's say, I'm gonna use the police department. They had 10 patrolmen, and then, they couldn't fulfill one position, and then the town would have then used those fundings for the unfunded. And it's like, hey, you can operate fine with 9 patrolmen. We're gonna just make that your budget, 9 patrolmen. And you could say, he has a shorter staff, and one is unfunded because it got reduced. But in this case, you had the funding for that librarian assistant, and you made a strategic decision to move to expand another position. So your funding was never reduced. And if you'd like another library assistant, it would be a request for a new position.
I don't think so, because we never absolved that library assistant position, but I don't think it's terribly relevant either, because we're not asking to fund that position. So
Well, but I do see this, I have seen this position. I think 2 budgets ago, it was requested funding for it. And I just want to be comparing apples to apples, because not everywhere we're expanding, like many, there are departments that are not expanding their services, right? Like the Parks and Rec, they have had a part-time person forever that they have tried to make it full-time. And I just want us to be comparing apples to apples when we're looking between departments. That's all. I can move it to the next slide.
thank you. So just a summary of service trends for the library. Last 5 years was what was requested, and here we have it. So I kind of broke this down as much as I could to reflect each of those service areas that we discussed at the beginning. Physical circulation would be people borrowing books, DVDs, other physical items from the library. That's the dark navy blue bars. And you can see over the last 5 years that has increased each year. Electronic circulation is the next statistic there. That's the orange bar. And you can see that that has doubled almost over the last 5 years, including a significant jump between FY24 and FY25. The green bar, unfortunately, a little bit of a challenge with scale there. That's program attendance, but that is on an upward trend, although the last 3 years don't have a huge difference. It is a positive change. The light blue bar is visitors. And you can see, obviously, I think on a lot of this, I would discount FY21. That's, during the pandemic, we were essentially closed down. But even the last 4 years, visitors is on the upward trend. And last year, it was over 68,000 visitors through the front door. The purple line is our community groups using our rooms service. And you can see that has also expanded over the years. 1,181 times we registered room use this past fiscal year, FY25.
What do you attribute that to?
What would I attribute that to?
Yeah, like, is it just that more folks are becoming familiar with their availability of the rooms, having been there, or just folks needing a space? I don't know if there's anything.
That's a great question. I think the trend, it does, it's upwards certainly, but it looks like a much larger increase than I think it really is, because you throw in the pandemic there. So those first 2 years, even that I'm not sure that that's relevant data. I put it on there because I had it, but I think it's a combination. I think is the quick answer. People are very aware that there are rooms available at the library. That includes those large format rooms, the community room, the conference room, where committees can meet, where you can have an informational session, where you can have a ham radio club meet every month. You have the Story Craft Room, which is very popular with Boys Scouts, Girl Scouts, especially the Girl Scouts in the Story Craft Room. We have our Quiet Study Room and our slightly larger multi-purpose room. Those are very popular with tutors. They're popular with people who need to make a phone call or have a Zoom meeting, and that, you know, even town employees from other departments have been able to come down and use the quiet study room for that kind of meeting. Sometimes we have groups of teens who want to do a study session. They need to be able to make a little more noise, and they can go in the quiet study room and, you know, shut themselves in there and do their project together. So all sorts of uses. I think our staff is very adaptable and willing to go out of the way to support the community, and I think people recognize that as well. And I think so it's a combination of those things, really. And if you want to throw in the awareness that there's a big lack of other options for community groups to meet in town, you know, that's kind of a theme that we've heard over the years, that there's not enough meeting space in town, and library is kind of always available. So yeah. And it sounded like you had another question.
Well, I was going to make a comment that in 23, between 23 and 24 is when the church sold the building to Shapiro, and some of the groups that you mentioned used to meet there, like the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. So there were, you know, a lot of community groups in town were displaced at that point. And also the schools used to have, not with the previous superintendent, but the superintendent before, she was very accommodating to allowing access to the school buildings. In fact, when the new high school was built, it was sold to the town as a community building. You know, but anyway, so I think over the years, there's been less and less access to public buildings. I do have a question. I know I have only used the room as, you know, in a town function. What is the policy and as related to rentals for the use of those larger meeting rooms?
We don't rent the room at all. It is a community service. We do tend to define it, define the groups that we are able to work with as nonprofits or for the benefit of the community. So there is a room use application that a group would fill out if they want to use the rooms. And if they kind of meet the criteria and agree to abide by the policy, they get a card with the appropriate privileges for reserving the room through the website.
Okay.
And then they can do that.
All right. Thank you.
Did you have any particular group that you think might be interested?
No, I was just asking for the financial part of it. I was wondering if you charge for it, and where do the fees go?
Yeah.
So you answered the question.
Yeah, no charge. Yeah, I think generally you'll find libraries are not big revenue generators, but they do return a lot of value. Yeah, over the years we've had requests for things like private birthday parties, and unfortunately, because of the way the policy is set up, we aren't able to support that. The other thing is the rooms are, there's a lot of competition for the rooms, and we have to limit the number of uses for each group during any year, so that all of the groups that want to use the space are able to use the space. And that generally runs out to about once a month that groups can use the library, so or use the rooms. But we are definitely available if people want to come and find out more.
Okay.
Any other questions about service trends before we move on? Alrighty. So our FY27 preliminary budget totals $654,168.24. That reflects a 3.5% increase over FY26. it does ensure continued delivery of those essential services that we've been talking about. Those address some of the rising operational costs as well. It does not address staffing needs. We talked about that a bit at the August Tri-Board meeting, presented a preliminary plan for the next couple of years, although obviously we have some more immediate and more pressing concerns. It does include an above level service funding request to the programming line for the library. And that would end up matching the funding level for programs from FY23 when we received a grant that was used for STEM programming specifically. That was part of a $13,000 Library Services and Technology Act grant, which is dispersed by the state library organization, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. That is money from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the federal group, and that's one of those funding sources that was frozen last year, and there were no LSTA grants this past year, although we had started the application process. So the major cost drivers in this budget really are contractual obligations in salary and step increases for both the collective bargaining agreement and the SAP. And of course, that does not at this point include cost of living adjustments. The programming line obviously is another factor there. And this budget does include costs for library materials, including the big driver behind the increase being digital resources, informational databases. We know the cost of the current databases that we offer the community for this FY27 cycle, and that has been factored in to that budget request. I think we're ready to go to the next slide, where I break down, give you the spread.
Do you know what I know we have to maintain services with CW Mars, there is a minimum mandated budget. Do you know what that total is?
Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide,
Oh,
that's on there.
Okay. There we go.
So CW Mars is about 2/3 of the way down. You can see that FY26, the total for the annual assessment to be a part of CW Mars cost us $20,571. FY27, it will cost us $21,006. So not a large increase at all. We are also, I believe, FY27 will be the last year that we are looking at that adjustment to the membership component of that annual assessment. Our CW Mars is the more than 150 libraries in the central and western part of the state that share resources. We have delivery vans that go between our libraries every day. So when in our annual assessment, there is a component of that amount that is charged to us to be a member of that network that is our membership fee, because over the last decade or so, since the preceding census, Lunenburg's population grew and rose above 10,000. That's the boundary between the discounted membership rate for CW Mars and the full membership rate. And so we have been transitioning over the last 5 years or so to a full membership fee, which ends up being $8,000. They were nice enough to spread that increase out over a number of years. So this should be the last year that the assessment increases because of the membership fee component. There are a few other changes moving into the future that may impact things here. I don't know how deep you want me to go into that, but this is an actual cost for FY27 for CW Mars, 21,000.
And my question was different, Mir. My question was, I
Oh,
know,
sorry.
I know in order to be part of CW Mars, we have to fund the library at a minimum. So there is like, in school, they say the foundation, like, the towns must fund. That's the number I'm trying to get. Like, what is the,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Flip
Do you
to
know?
the next slide for me.
Okay. There we go.
We can come back to this in a second. So for the library, we do have kind of state. It's not exactly a state mandate, but it's kind of mandated by that state group, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. That group sets the standard for public library service in the state. And if libraries meet those requirements, those minimum standards, it will allow a library to be certified to receive state aid. In FY26, we Lunenburg, and I'm looking at the town manager's guest star on her video feed there. So, all right. In FY26, back to no more cats. In FY26, Lunenburg Public Library and the town of Lunenburg will receive $34,000, just slightly over $34,000 in state aid to libraries because of our certification for this program. We've received one of those payments, and usually the second payment comes out towards the end of the fiscal year. That is one of the big benefits of being certified in this way by the MBLC. There are other benefits as well. I think that's one of the other benefits, which is being allowed to participate in the statewide resource sharing. That's really what you're wondering about and you're thinking of as membership in CW Mars. And really, by being certified, we actually have access even beyond CW Mars. CW Mars is the local resource sharing agreement. And by being certified, we actually have access to 59 million items across the Commonwealth. We can also get items outside of that range if we need to, but that is one of the real strengths of Massachusetts libraries. It makes Massachusetts libraries world-class. Our resource sharing network and networks is absolutely special. Certification also makes us eligible for those MBLC grants, the $13,000 we received in 2023 for STEM learning for all ages. To be certified, I'll just run through the basic version of the requirements. We have to meet our municipal appropriation requirement, which is that dollar amount that you're asking about. We need to meet the minimum standards of free public library service, which has a number of components, including the number of hours we're open during the week, the number of hours during the evening that we're open, education for certain members of the staff, including the director. And then we also need to submit annual reports and forms to show our compliance. Our FY27 municipal appropriation requirement, which is that bare minimum to maintain your certification that the library must receive, is $598,835.25. How do you come up with that number, you may ask? It's basically the quick version of that is it's the average of the previous 3 years total municipal appropriation to the library increased by 2.5%. So for FY27, it's just under $600,000. There's also a funding requirement as to how much money the library spends on what we call library materials, and that goes back to basically what qualifies here is material that circulates or is used by the public in our facility. So books, DVDs, Library of Things, digital resources, those databases that we talk about, all of those are qualifying purchases for library materials. To maintain our certification, we have to spend the equivalent of 16% of that, of whatever our municipal appropriation is on qualifying library materials. Any questions about that?
Do you know, just from the top of your head, what is the minimum number of hours that you must stay open to be certified?
I think for a library of our size, it's 40 hours, and we're open 48 hours a week.
That's awesome. Okay.
I had one quick question on the budget.
Oh.
You looks like you decreased the
Yep.
mileage and increased I can't remember if it was training or something like that.
Sure. Do you want to flip back to the previous slide for me? And I can run through some of these requests. Obviously,
Personal
the top three
development.
lines are salaries. And then, so what you're asking about is down towards the bottom. If you look at FY26, we have $4,000 in our mileage reimbursement line. And that's been our funding level for a couple of years. And we use that money mostly for professional development. Before the pandemic, what that meant was we were paying staff mileage. Since the pandemic, a lot more training is virtual. A lot more of the networking that we need to do can be done through Zoom or other online meeting applications. So what we're doing there is splitting that $4,000 into an actual professional development line, which probably makes the auditors happy, but it's not a change in funding level.
So will that mean that you'll be doing more training, because obviously you're not going to have to pay for transportation. You're going to pay for the cost of training. You'll have more money to do that.
I don't think that reflects any change in actual practice. It's essentially going to be the same. We have been using money from the mileage line for professional development purposes. And that's, the preceding administration had suggested we not change that. And we had just left the money there in that mileage line. So this just reflects our actual practice. We spend most of the money there on, paying for tickets or seats in training or training resources, and including, attending the annual library conference for some staff. So there will still be some mileage, I would anticipate, but it's moving the funding to a budget line that's named after what it will actually be used for and what it has been used for recently.
Who are you paying mileage?
I'm sorry?
Who are you paying mileage to?
Library staff.
Or what?
To travel to training opportunities, for networking opportunities, for participation in the annual library conference and other similar opportunities.
So they don't do training online versus traveling?
But they since the pandemic, they are doing that more. Yes. Yep. And I think if you go back before the pandemic, there really would not have been much reason to have a professional development line, or the mileage was actually being used for traveling in their personal vehicles, library staff, to networking and training opportunities. So we, as part of our participation in CW Mars, we send a representative, and that's the director, to the Users Council, which is the governing body for the resource sharing network. During the pandemic, those user council meetings, which were held at various libraries through the state, which obviously created a lot of need every quarter to drive to another library and participate in the meeting. During the pandemic, those were switched over to virtual. So that's a great example of an opportunity where we need to go and participate in a meeting to fulfill our obligations, and we don't need to drive. We just need to get on the computer, and that's actually a cost savings. You know, we don't have to pay anything to do that except for electricity. That answer your question, Jay?
Yes, I guess
Okay.
Are there any other line items that you're using the funding for a purpose and then other what the line item is for?
No.
And are you getting,
And you can see, go ahead. Yep.
you've zeroed out the book service?
So book service is the budget line that we have been using to basically rent a bunch of books from one of our wholesalers. And we did a cost benefit analysis on that. And that ends up, it may not have been the case years ago, but these days that costs slightly more than just buying books outright. Long time ago, that may not have been the case, and may have been a cost savings, but times change, and that program is no longer a benefit to us. So that money has been moved into the library materials line, and that that book rental expense does qualify for that library materials requirement. So that makes sense to move that funding down there. It allows us to buy maybe a couple more book titles than we would otherwise. Otherwise be able to rent through that book service. And then, it gives us a little more flexibility in expending that money. Any other questions on these budget amounts?
I think we were 2 slides forward. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So just run through quickly where money comes from for the library. If you remember, my newborn is lying next to me and he's sleep talking. I don't know if you guys can hear him or not.
A little bit.
So if you remember back to our tri-board meeting in August, the library receives probably a third of its operational costs from other funding sources than town appropriations. And I guess it's more like a quarter, right? If we're looking at our pie chart here. Sorry, didn't mean to inflate things there. I guess I was thinking FY25 when we received ARPA funds. I was more like, maybe because we received almost I guess it was more than $150,000 in ARPA funds. It was more like, so anyways, you see the pie chart. You see how much of our funding comes from outside sources. Let's break it down. Let's start with appropriations. You can see this is FY26, our total appropriation from the town of Lunenburg for the Lunenburg Public Library was $632,036.76. That is supplemented by library state aid, as we mentioned, for FY26, $34,383.52. Our friends of the Lunenburg Public Library are very special, and they are well worth mentioning. Other friends groups of friends of library groups in the state often have single-digit memberships, double-digit memberships. Our friends group in Lunenburg loves our library so much. There are more than 300 active members That means they've paid their annual membership dues for the Friends of the Library within the last 12 months. But that is remarkable. And I'm sure you're all aware of our twice annual book and bake sales and how popular those are. That is a major source for their funds. But these are funds that are given to this 501c3, this nonprofit, to support the library. They're given essentially, because those members trust the Friends of the Library to help the library do special things for the community. And so we get kind of two flavors of support from the Friends. The first is the Friends operational budget. And I would characterize that as money spent on behalf of the library or in order to support the library in one way or another. One big component there is typically around $20,000 that they spend on programming for the library. They're able to do that because the town has invested in the library so heavily, including, funding other programs in addition to what the Friends can fund. They also have created partnerships like their partnership with North End Subaru, which generates $3,600 that goes towards our monthly music series. The Friends match that $3,600 from North End Subaru, and it creates a fantastic series of programs that often bring in 40 or 50 people for a concert at the library each month. The other flavor of support from the Friends are endowment gifts. The Friends have a chunk of money that they hold in their endowment. They have invested that quite wisely and grown it pretty incredibly over the years. And this FY26 year, they are planning to give us $66,000 for about 3 facilities projects. So that's very special of them. They really like to do things that wouldn't otherwise be able to happen. But that's because, the town has, over the years, taken care of the operational costs of the library. The other component of our funding is outside grants. For FY26, we anticipate receiving $20,090. Yeah, I think that was what I wanted to say here. I'm happy to answer any questions while we're here, or we can move on.
So I just want to understand the endowment gifts. Do the Friends of the Library have an endowment that they draw from? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So how about, I know we transfer some trust investment accounts to the library board of trustees. Is that being invested being used in any way or no?
It is currently invested. The trustees are following the prudent investor rule. The current value of the library trust funds is, well, as of the last statement, and I think probably the value has changed drastically since then, it was around $105,000 in total. That's over 20 initial gifts that have been given to the library. Some of them have very specific purposes, and the trustees are continuing to develop their investment policy.
No, that's okay. I was just trying. One last, this is a comment, it's not a question. One thing I have asked the schools to do is to, whenever they give us a budget, they give us a comprehensive budget that tells us, all the monies they're using to offer the services they are. And, because the idea is, and I'll use school lunches as an example, because I think that's something important. By not showing us how much those services they provide, they're outside the general fund, we don't have an insight into the value of, seeing of how you're spending. So I would suggest that next year, you would have a budget presentation that includes all these monies that you're spending. And then when you come to funding sources, we know, the general fund is not everything. And that just so that we can appreciate, and the community, like this presentation is recorded and hopefully other people watch it. But, so then the community see, that we have another $150,000 in services that we are providing, and that currently it's not being funded. In case any of those ever go away, it's not going to be a new thing for the community. The community will say, those things are very important. We should continue to fund it. So that's just a recommendation for next year.
That's what this slide shows.
Right, but
This
we are not
is an
saying,
accurate representation of what the
right.
library is spending.
Oh, no, I understood that, but it's not a budget, like in the form of a budget, like, it's just giving us some information that, a concrete piece of paper with how, you're using those fundings, and it just more information out there. And with the idea is to value the services you're doing.
All right, so next slide. Grant funding, just an overview of our grant sources for FY26. We have an active grant with Emerson Hospital. They awarded us $700 from the Christine Gallery Community Benefit Grant. That is going to be used for a partnership between the library and the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center to better support residents and their families suffering from Alzheimer's or suffering with Alzheimer's and memory challenges. We will purchase likely about 5 memory kits that will be cataloged, but will be housed at the activity center. Deb and her team up there have done a fantastic job expanding their monthly memory cafe. And there are many families in the area that will be able to benefit from those resources. The Lunenburg Cultural Council awarded us $1,500 or so to support cultural programming events. That is quite a bit less than they have over the last few years. As mentioned briefly a moment ago, North End Subaru has given us $3,600 this fiscal year for our monthly concert series. They've been contributing that for several years now, and then the Friends matched that amount so that we can offer a fantastic concert every month. Other grants that are worth mentioning this past summer, the Main Street Group Foundation, which is the nonprofit foundation that's connected to Main Street Bank, funded our summer lunch program. And last summer, we served more than 1,400 lunches during our summer reading program, 4 days a week, mostly between July, mostly during the month of July. We did serve all the way up to the beginning of the school year, and that was a very popular component of last year's summer reading program. And so just to mention the amount there, $14,225 given by Main Street Group Foundation. Any questions before we move on?
I'll just make a comment that, you and Deb Goodsell have been doing a great job. And another service that you and Deb were able to deploy is seniors that receive Meals on Wheels. If they have a book request, you guys are coordinating that gets delivered with our meals. So I just want to say thank you. That's a fantastic, fantastic service, and one that we were able to, without necessarily affecting a lot of funding. But I know it takes a lot of effort from the library to coordinate this thing. So thank you.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. We are very happy to do that. I'm considering that as hopefully a pilot program for home delivery for other homebound people as well. Obviously, we wouldn't necessarily be able to use Meals on Wheels drivers, but this is a program that's currently running. And as you said, that's because that's a program that's already running that we're able to partner with. That's how we're being efficient with basically not spending any more money to do that. And hopefully we'll be able to help out those Meals on Wheels guys. And obviously more than just books. I suspect that they may be even more interested in some of the other things that we offer. But
Right.
yeah, thanks for the shout out there.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's great. Thank you.
Want to go to the next one? There we go. Okay, so we got a summary here. As mentioned, it's a level services library budget, reflects staff changes that have occurred during FY26. We have filled the position left by our retired children's librarian of 10 years. We've hired two other, and they're anticipated 2 other new staff members, and that whole series of changes significantly decreases our salary expense. Obviously, when you go from a 10-year veteran to someone who's stepping into a new role, there's an impact on salary expense there. Library material costs do continue to rise. It's especially obvious in digital resources, and that corresponds to an area where we see an increasing demand. Just going back to those service trends, if you think of the electronic circulation going from 26,000 items in FY25 to over 34,000 items circulated in FY24 to over 34,000 items circulated in FY25, that's a huge jump. And those are items that are very expensive, for the library. Similarly, programming expenses are increasing per presenter or program that we put on. The demand for that core service is also on the rise. It's one of the most effective places for the library to create community and support community is through our programs. My current staff deserves recognition for, especially my assistant director who works on adult programs, for really leaning heavily on local experts to lead programs the last couple of years, and that's saved significant money, but it does hide some of those expenses. We've got local people who are very generous with their time, really not getting paid, compensated at a fair rate or a market rate, but they're doing it to help build community. I think it's just another example of people who really care about the community and are helping support their neighbors and friends through the library. As I think I've already gone through, our library is really uniquely advantaged with our friends of the Lunenburg Public Library. That 501c3 is able to support the town in very special ways. And that huge membership number is remarkable. It's really unique for a library of our size. They are generous, and their financial support reflects the value they place in the library. Luckily, as town administration has committed more investment in the library, the Friends have also been able to commit more. FY26 will be basically a record high for their support for the library as far as dollar value goes. Just the last note on this slide, I have put the number $2.3 million down here as an estimate of the value returned by the library. That's an estimate. If you want to think of return on investment, compare that to the annual budget of the library. This is attaching a fairly conservative dollar value on just the measurable statistics that the library delivers. So book circulations, electronic book circulations, e-audio books, room use, program numbers, number of people who have used the public access computers. So it's a group of really concrete statistics, and it's done through the ilovelibraries.org website. So if you want to go and check that number yourself, feel free. It's all based on our annual report to the state statistic numbers, which are readily available. I think beyond that, the word I keep using on this slide is community. And I think that's really where the library shines. People recognize it as a community center, community hub. People find community there, and we certainly want to support our community. I think the last slide is just a great picture of our staff. One of our Halloween costume theme days. But I'd be happy to entertain any more questions, and certainly thank you for listening, and thank you for all your help.
Can you go back one slide,
Oh,
please?
yes, I will do that. Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay. That one.
You just give an example when you talk about library material costs rising, especially the digital resources and demand for them. What are the digital resources, and are these one-time expenses, reoccurring expenses?
So it's a mix. I would include in digital resources, and especially resources that are increasing in cost, ebooks, e-audiobooks, digital, digital databases. If you want to think of research databases, that would be one example. You might also think of our Canopy service, which is a streaming video service. Started off as very documentary focused, but it has expanded quite a bit, and there are all sorts of enriching and entertaining videos on there, including some mainstream movies. But those, I think across the board, when you think of a database, they will have an annual increase. Those are subscription costs. Each year that we want to offer that resource to the community, you have an annual subscription expense. If we go back to last summer, you may remember from the Tri-Board presentation in August, because the IMLS, the Federal Museum and Library organization, was defunded, there were no federal grants to states. And so the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners did not receive their, the $3.6 million that they would typically receive. And one of the uses of that $3.6 million was a collection of research databases, and they had to cut a number of those databases. Luckily, at that point, we were in a position where we were able to pick them up. The vendor did give us a discount at that point, understanding the challenge that we were in. But those, if we wanted to continue to offer them to the community, we would have an annual expense to pay for them. Things like Ancestry that you can use at the library to do genealogy resource, you pay an annual subscription for that. As far as maybe a more concrete example, if you think back a couple of years, there was, we discussed, I think, with the Finance Committee, the challenge of costs for ebooks and e-audiobooks. And at that point, I think the average cost to the library for an ebook was probably around $55 or $60. And that has expanded to generally about $80 per title that we offer to the community. Part of the reason that that's more than it costs you to pay for a Kindle book, for instance, which sometimes is free, sometimes it's $3, right? It's super cheap. Those publishers view the library as competition, and they think that by enabling access through a library where we pay for one title and are able to share it amongst a couple people, that they are impacting their revenue. Statistics generally show that that's not true, but it doesn't stop those publishers from charging us more money to offer that to the community. Does that help, Jay?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna stop sharing now if that's okay with everybody. No one else has questions?
I just had one last question about I know they've been talking about the police and fire station buildings needing work. How is the overall health of the library, the building itself?
Our facility is in solid shape. Excuse me. I think it was not this past summer, but the summer before, we had a nice repair to our HVAC system. The airflow had been running at about 50%, and Chris and his team managed to identify an issue and restore that proper airflow. Temperature in the facility since then has been a lot more stable, although I think that has led to increased electricity costs. So I would say in general, the library facility is in good shape. It is an aging facility. It's 20 years old a couple months ago. And I think we had on the capital plan beginning to look at the process of replacing that HVAC system. I think the roof, based on conversations with Chris, and he maybe can give you a slightly better answer, more detailed than me, but the roof looks like it's got a number of years left on it, significantly better than, say, the public safety building, right? And in general, we've been able, thanks to the Friends, honestly, going back to the early 2000s, they contribute a lot of money to building maintenance over those years. But thanks to that ongoing maintenance, the facility is in great shape. And people do still come in and marvel that it's not a brand new building. But certainly the superficial aspects of the facility, it's in great shape. And we will continue to do our best to take care of it. Yeah, no major issues though.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Muir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
listening. Thanks for your questions. Let me know if you have anything else. I'm always happy to help.
Anna,
And hopefully we'll see you soon at the library.
do you mind driving
Jen?
for a pack as well, Anna?
No,
Thank
just
you so much.
a couple minutes to get that set up. if that-
I have the updated presentation.
I dropped it in. Did you change it since the one you emailed earlier today?
No.
Okay, that's the one that's in their shared drive.
Okay, so you want me to drive it?
I don't mind doing it.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
you can do it, Joe?
I think so. Let me give it a shot.
Alrighty.
Okay. Last but not least, here we go. This is the FY27 budget presentation for Public Access Cable, or PAC. Right now, the key services that we provide are coverage of 20 board and committee meetings on our Government Channel 8. We record town events, presentations, and concerts. That's a lot of library activities, events, a lot of presentations at the Senior Center or the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. We broadcast several LHS home sports games, which is mainly football and basketball. We maintain the social media, including YouTube channel videos. We produce original local programming in the studio. Right now, we have 3 programs, and we have 2 more programs coming on board within the next month or 2. And we respond to special requests from town departments such as informational sessions and announcements. We recently did the 4th shift proposal presentation for the fire department, and it has over 400 views on our YouTube channel, so it's very popular. Our organizational structure is the department head, myself, the manager of PAC, reports to the town manager 36 hours a week. But I also support the Public Access Cable Committee, or PAC with an extra C. Underneath the department head is a production technician at 23 hours a week, 6 videographers. They're anywhere from 2 to 10 hours a week, and the bulletin administrator. And I don't have a trend slide, but just to get into the videographers, right now we pay our videographers between $19.63 up to $25.36. So it averages about $22.04 an hour. And the reason I mention this is because we did over 139 hours in February, which is about average. That number changes depending on what time of year it is. Right now, with the budget season, there's a significant amount of hours increased over the weeks leading up to the town meeting. So that 139 hours came out to over $3,000 for videographers this month alone. Our Channel 8 hours for February, what we run on Channel 8 is over 234 hours of programming. And our public channel right now, we added 11 new shows on our public channel, Channel 9, in February. Overall, our yearly growth in our public channel has gone from FY25 having 80 total programs broadcast for the year to date in FY26, we have 109 programs to date on our public channel, Channel 9. And 80% of those programs are locally produced. The other 20% come from a database that we download the programs and run them on our station. Any questions?
I do have a few, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The production technician, the 23 hours a week, is that one person that does the 23 hours a week?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that, I mean, you clearly know what you're talking about, but I was trying to take notes. Was it February you had 139 hours of videographers?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have a breakdown to what those 139 hours were, or were they all like town related meetings? And do you keep track of that or no?
I keep track of the amount of hours, but I don't keep track. I mean, when the hours are submitted, they state what they worked on. So I can see that every pay period. But
you
I don't,
keep track of the type of engagement that was like school, town meeting, or or town related things or what have you, right?
they're all town related. I mean, but you're speaking of the Channel 8 government
I'm
hours.
well, so
Yeah.
I don't have cable. I only watch, I only watch, YouTube or Facebook. So I don't have a good sense of what it's in there. Um, so from the 139 hours, like if you have a breakdown, like athletic events, recording of meetings, eh, let's see, because again, I don't see your program, so I don't know what they are. And
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to get a sense of. Um, and when you said 80% of 109 were locally produced, I have no idea of that 80%, what those
Okay, that,
locally produced is, because I don't have cable.
what that means is that there are programs we didn't get off of a database from another organization. In other words, it would be, for instance, recording the fire fourth shift presentation. That is something we sent a videographer out to do, so we locally produced that. That would be a presentation at the library. We sent out a videographer, so that would be classified as locally produced.
Okay. Okay, so the local produce, in times, it could be these town government related programs. Okay.
Well, no, the locally produced is only the numbers for our Channel 9, which is public, not government.
Okay, what are those programs?
On our public channel,
Yeah.
those
Are-
those are programs from different events around town.
Okay. Um, the and when people have meetings at the at town hall, is that considered videographer or the production technician?
That's mainly the videographer. The production technician would take care of any technical issues. As mentioned in the presentation, he manages equipment maintenance and tracking, studio production and administration, and support and training of videographers.
Okay.
So he would not be at town hall unless we had an issue there.
Gotcha. Okay. And why, like, I don't know what a bulletin administrator is. Can you explain to me what that is?
Sure. She's the person that gets the requests from people in the community to run posts or bulletins about events coming up or information about something. And she takes that and creates slides and puts it on our bulletin, which runs in between programming.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay?
Joe,
Yes.
you know what percentage of your programming is just the town boards and commissions?
Well, everything on Channel 8, our government channel, is locally produced, so 100%.
Yeah, but you said you did 100 and something programs between
Right, I
Channel
was-
8 and Channel 9.
I was referring to our public channel
Mhm.
only, which does not run government meetings.
Madam Chair, can I maybe ask
So-
what might be Jay's question a little bit differently? Jay, let's try this one on for size, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
If you had to, and maybe you don't know, and maybe this isn't the question, but if you had to apportion the percentage of time that your staff spends on filming content or touching content related to government meetings on the public government, on the G channel, versus how much time is spent by your staff on the P&E related content.
Right, I would
was that
have
it?
to,
Pretty close.
Okay.
I don't have that number. This time of year, it's, 80% of their time is government meetings. But I would have to dig into the numbers to get you the correct number for that.
Joe, is that something that you think either you would be able to either provide for the finance committee or if it's not something that is really easy to provide, it's something that you could start tracking.
Certainly.
Yeah. That would be nice to know.
Sure, I can look into
Thank
that.
you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay. Right now, excuse me, right now, our budget is $297,506.41. We are going to be taking in 200,000 in revenue. Well, my numbers are, anyway, we're going to be taking in 200,000 in revenue. So our deficit is $97,506.41. I think I have a document. Oh, I can't get at it. The main reason for the expenses are the salaries and operation costs, medical insurance, legal fees for cable contract negotiations, which is a one-time fee, and we have an aging and obsolete program server, which we need to replace, and that's a one-time fee as well.
So Joe, that number that we're using for retained earnings, is that a higher number than last year? Because I think, wasn't last year like around 35,000?
Last year was $31,271, and with a 9% increase this year, it's going to be $34,086.
So last year we used 35,000 from retained earnings, and this year we are using 97,000.
What
Joe,
we
I
want,
think you answered about indirect costs.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at something else.
Okay.
The $97,506 is the delta or the deficit that we're running at that we would like to use to retain earnings to cover for this year's budget.
Right. What was that you used for retained earnings last year?
$32,296.
That's a big jump.
Yes, and mostly because of the major cost drivers that I mentioned, especially the server replacement. The server replacement is going to cost over $52,000 plus installation, so it's going to bring it up to around $55,000. So our new equipment or capital has gone last year from $30,000 to this year because of the server replacement. It's gone up to $65,000 proposed for FY27. What we get for that $55,000 is a server that will have cloud services, closed captioning, a Roku and Fire TV and Apple TV channels, and a mobile app. Some of these expenses that come along with the server are a one-time fee, some are an annual fee. So while we're not going to have a equipment number at $65,000 the following fiscal year, because a lot of these fees are annual, that's going to go up, but it won't be $65,000.
Gotcha. Does PAC have a long-term plan for matching their operations to their new to their current income?
Well, I will get to that, but there is, there is legislature right now in the State House. It's called an Act to Modernize Funding for Community Media, which is Bill H91 and S41 and H106. It's a fee for streaming entertainment companies for the use of public rights of way. So basically, the cable company would pay us a percentage of they would pay us a fee for streaming services. And that is kind of the Hail Mary that's in legislation right now that we're hoping will help with the diminishing funds that we have from our franchise fee.
Okay.
It's in the House and Ways, oh, I'm sorry, Ways and Means Committee right now. So they're questioning it and they are going through a legal review.
Okay.
Joe,
Yes,
this server replacement you were just talking about,
yes.
what are all those, what sound like bells and whistles to me, do for PAC or the public?
Well, I mean, the closed captioning is a great service. Having the option of having our channel on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV is a great service. They have cloud services, video on demand. So instead of going to YouTube, you could go and put video on demand on a site. Get our meetings through a video on demand site. The mobile app would come in handy.
So these are all things for the public to access your programming?
Yes. And also, one of the features, which is something that's been requested and we haven't been able to do, is have an agenda of the meeting right during the meeting would automatically come up. People could follow the agenda. And when they go back to run a video on demand, they can skip to certain parts of the agenda. So it has a lot of really great features.
I
and-
just want to jump in and comment as a government video junkie. The communities that do have this feature, it's really useful for the public who just wants to dial into just a certain part of the meeting.
It sounds very much like the FATV app.
Yes, I think they created their own. I don't think it was part of a service,
Gotcha.
but they do have a nice feature.
Yeah.
Okay, so this budget is as we stand today, but I created a contingency budget. And the reason I did this was because the TCP is going to be closing down. And with that, we are basically homeless. We're trying to find space. But as of right now, our only option, and I'm still researching, and I will be getting more numbers, but as of right now, one of the options we have is to rent out studio space, which comes at a cost. On this spreadsheet, it shows under equipment maintenance and lease, our lease at the TCP was $6,000 a year. Next to it, under the proposed FY27 request, I have $14,000. The reason being the cost to rent out studio space for the potentially 5 shows that we have would come at a cost of $12,000 to $14,000 a year. So I added that in there, and it's listed under excuse me, it's listed under major cost drivers, the studio rental. And also if we go to rent a studio, our employees would need to get trained on that software, or the equipment that they use. So on this listing of line items under contracted services, FY 26 had $500 set aside for contracted services. I'm sorry. Yeah, contracted services was 500, and the proposed FY 27 for contracted services is $1,200, and that's for training. So
You said there were five current shows that would have to be done at the other studio?
yes.
How
Well,
many,
we have 3 active and 2 are in the process of getting started.
okay, how many actual views of these shows are there? I mean, I mean, I'm just looking at it as a cost benefit. If we're spending, 14,000 for rent and the cost of all the training and all the other things, is this still a viable thing to do?
Well, Comcast does not give us viewership numbers. We can only go by what YouTube shows, and not everybody goes to YouTube. So it's a really difficult thing to measure. We know that our story time is very popular. We upload it to a database, and the database is called MMX, and it's used by media centers throughout Massachusetts. We have 85 affiliates that download Storytime. So that shows us it's very popular. Right now we have, in addition to Storytime, we have a program that runs on both our public channel and our government channel called Committee Confidential, and that just started a month ago. And we also have another show that started about a month ago called Book Club. Those 2 are not getting a ton of views on YouTube yet, but I think they're going to gain popularity. And the 2 that we have in progress are, one program for our public channel is called Welcome To, where they feature different places in the town. And another one is a knitting show.
I haven't seen the
So-
new show. Is baseball talk gonna come back?
We're not sure yet. We're hopeful it will come back, but the host has a number of health issues, so we're not sure.
We gotta work on that host.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the studio rental is with FATV.
Well, that's one of our options. I'm exploring a couple of other options. So that number will become more solid as I go through the exercise of gathering the information. Any other questions?
The server, what's the expected life of that server that you'll be purchasing?
Well, we've had the one we have right now for 8 years, so I'm assuming it would be 8 years. It's a more robust system. It has more storage. It's quicker. It's easier to use. Plus all those features I mentioned.
Joe, what's the expenses PEG access if there's a significant increase?
Well, the significant increase is obviously the server, which is listed under new
Of course.
equipment or capital. But this year we will also have legal fees for the contract negotiations, the Comcast contract negotiations.
But you have new equipment, it's 65,000.
Right, and our server will
And-
come out of that 65,000.
Okay, but further down under the expenses, PEG access, it goes from 54,000 to 147,000.
Right.
What is that for? Is to
Not sure.
That's the total of the column, I think. Is it
Yes,
not?
yes.
the line item.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's the total.
it's-
I think it's
Yeah.
supposed to be the total, is it not?
The budget request for 27.
Which one is line item?
6,200, 1902.
It's so small.
I know I'm looking at it on the one you got in the email. It's much easier to see.
Is there a way to make this larger? Hold on, let me see if I can. How's that?
Isn't that the total of the receipts right here?
Which number are we referring to?
Are we at the 194?
The 147,086.
That is the expenses for operations. Not salaries, but operations.
Yeah, for 26, it was like 54,000. For 27, you're jumping up to 147.
Yes. Well, the indirect costs went up, the legal fees were added, the server was added.
Is
We,
the service out of the capital?
is the, what out of the capital?
The server, isn't that under new
Yes.
equipment capital, 65,000?
Yes.
Expenses, PEG access.
I'm looking in the actual spreadsheet, Joe.
Okay, I
So
wanted to,
that 147,086 is the sum of everything. If you go up above where you see 159, 120.
Yeah,
So from there down, the 14,000, the 1,200, 1,600, 400, 400, all the way down, that's the sum of all of that through 34,000.
oh, okay.
It looks like,
I can share my screen if you want.
Joe, perhaps there was an error in let me just sum this other column. It looks like maybe this wasn't summed on the left for comparison, but let me check. Oh, Anna, you're in here too. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh,
I don't think it was summed correctly.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I'll let you do it.
I worked so much on it, I think I could have made an error.
Okay, it would have been the sum. Yeah, it would have been 84, 921, 924.
Yep.
instead of the 54,271.88. And so that's just going through, it's the increase for the equipment maintenance and lease from 6,000 to 14,000, contracted services from 500 to 1,200, purchase of services from 1,100 to 1,600, consultant 500 to 400, advertising 350 to 400, office supplies 200 to 400, supplies 15,000 to 18,000, and the new equipment capital from 30,000 to 65,000, legal fees from 0 to 12,000, and indirect costs from $31,271.94 to $34,086.41. So it's the sum of all of those things.
Okay. That makes
And
sense.
you have that in your SharePoint,
Yes.
if you want to take a look at that.
I think that last line there, the 31,000 wasn't added before. Anyway, all right.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, our funding sources, 17% is investment income. We put 3/4 of our funds into bonds, an investment bond fund. And that's getting around $35,000 a year profit or interest, I should say. And 83% of our funding comes from Comcast franchise fees. And as I mentioned earlier, the Act to Modernize funding for community media, we're hoping that comes through. And the way that that's going to be administered is if it does go through, then the fees will be split between the community, the state, and the public access media center. We don't get any grants. And as I said, we get Comcast franchise fees and bond investment. Our quarterly payments have been going down every year. In fact, well, they've been going down steadily over the last 2 years. So as you can see on the right, and I will try to blow that up a little bit. I can't see the percentage because I don't know what you can see, but I get everyone on the right of the screen. But our last franchise payment was the first time that it was below $40,000. So we estimated for FY27 for about 38,000 a quarter. Which would be about 152,000 for the year. In summary, I will go ahead and read this, but you have it in front of you. PAC has experienced a decline in revenue from Comcast over the past 2 years and has had an increase in hours providing services to the town. Special government presentations, information sessions, and meetings are on the rise, causing a spike in videographer and production hours. Due to this growing number of recording requests, resources are stretched thin with few options. PAC has reached a crossroads where it has become important to make immediate and necessary decisions to ensure its future. Moving forward, considering the decline in revenue, PAC will need to seek alternative revenue resources, including town resources or a reduction in personnel and or their hours. A lower headcount will result in a shift of priorities away from content produced locally for the public and educational channels. Therefore, there would be no coverage of popular concerts, sports, events, and presentations. The government channel would attempt to maintain a level service, whether staff is cut or the town assists in funding PAC, as all available resources would be used for government meetings. Funding assistance from the town would help us maintain level services on all channels, public, educational, and government, or PEG. In addition, unfunded media channels such as YouTube and Facebook could continue to be available. Having the town supplement the budget would mitigate the shortfall in Comcast revenue and essentially give the town a stake in PAC's overall health. PAC could therefore continue to provide local programming to keep the community entertained, informed, and updated. Without the town's participation in contributing funds, PAC's mission and current service levels may not be fully realized. So basically, if things don't change as far as funding, we have to make some hard choices. And we would have to move away from trying to build the public channel and move toward continuing and even growing the government channel to keep up with the meetings and the committee meetings. Assistance from the town would be fantastic. I've heard of a couple of towns that are getting some support from their town, some financial support from their town. It's not generally all over the place, but it is happening now with the decrease in Comcast funding. So I just wanted to put it out there that we would, appreciate being considered to get some funding from the town in the future.
Yeah, this is Tom. I just wanted to say that this is not a Lunenburg issue. This is all over the state and probably all over the country as far as the switch of people from going from cable to streaming services and other things. So the local public access model, which has been around for, 20, 30, 40 years now, is going to have to change dramatically. And I don't think it's a Lunenburg decision. It's going to be probably the state's going to have something to do with it. Maybe the streaming funding might either be a stopgap or maybe solve the problem. I don't know. But there is, the world has changed dramatically since these things were set up. YouTube and the ability for individuals to do their own shows via their phone wasn't around 40 years ago. So what are the needs of the community today really should be really re-examined. What does a public access thing look like today versus what it was 40 years ago with all the other options available to people? So I myself wouldn't want to support or not support town funding, but to me that has to be looked at first. And figured out how the long-term support for it, and what will be their new mission if there is going to be a new mission.
Yeah, right. I mean, we are in the minority. Over 90% of the media centers in Massachusetts are 501c3s. We are a town department. The 501c3s are eligible for a lot of grants, where we are not. A lot of media centers are regionalizing. That's difficult for us to regionalize with a 501c3 because of our funding base. We can't really regionalize with a nonprofit. It just, the numbers don't work. So it is changing. We are hopeful that that bill gets passed because it won't solve all the problems, but it will keep us funded to a reasonable level.
I think, you know, I'm gonna take on what Tom said. You know, Joe, I think, you know, you're thinking of funding. But I think what Tom was talking about, and I'll add my spin to it, you know, you know, the business is shifting, right? Like what it was before is not what it is now. And we got to look structurally what makes the most sense for the organization. I know for, you know, and not, like you said, a lot of, we're in the minority because most communities, they have separated from their community TV and they have turned into 501(c)(3)s. That's an evolution of how the business we're doing. And, you know, once you become a 501(c), you can apply for more grants, and, you know, you have a lot more latitude to how you define how you're spending the money that you have. Once it's a town, although you are, you know, part of town government, you're a enterprise fund, self-sufficient. If it becomes the need that the town will need to support, you know, your department with funds, now we are going through the same scrutiny in terms of prioritization as every other department does, right? And that has some cost to it. So I think, you know, the current members of your committee should think about that, because it's not just like once it comes to the town government. I mean, I don't know if you were here for the library presentation, but, you know,
I was.
It's, you know, you don't get a lot more. In fact, you get very capped on what you can do and expand on. You know, and I know Mir has been asking for more funding for his programming line, and every year I complain how we are not funding programming in the senior center at the same level, and the, you know, in the recreation committee. So I guess my challenge back to the members of your committee is, you know, it's really to think structurally, how can this function survive long term? You know, is it proposing to become its own 501(c) and start going after grants? Because if it comes to the town, you know, it's not going to be such an independent department as you guys are now. So that's, you know, I'll put it back on. I personally would put it back on your committee to come up with ideas versus just, you know, give us, you know, more funding. I think even if the streaming fee comes through, you know, let's not forget, like, if that goes through, y'all gonna be paying for it, right? Like, we have a line. I remember when we had cable, we had a line that was, you know, if the government starts charging for streaming services, we're going to be paying for that. So anyway, I don't see that as necessarily a saving. I see you saving your, you know, your services as they are now. But I think you guys do have a challenge on really imagining what is that you're going to be in, you know, 5 years, and come up with maybe different models, similar to how other towns have come up with. I think for your benefit, creative independence, becoming a dependent town government, it's going to be detrimental for what you guys do. But one thing I'll ask you is to really, if you don't have it, to start tracking your expenses based on the services that you provide, so that should that come up next year, we'll need to really start digging into what services you're providing and what fits within our budget.
Right, thank you. Yes. Any other questions?
Joe, what do you mean by media centers?
Oh, just public access stations. They sometimes call them media centers.
But you said they're nonprofit.
Most of the ones in Massachusetts are nonprofits.
I know, Jay, Fitchburg is a nonprofit,
Yes,
ATV, but I don't think Leominster is.
I believe they are.
They are, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Westford is, and they,
Sterling Lancaster is.
yeah,
yeah. And they just launched, like Westford, they just launched a newspaper, and they're working to become the newspaper on record. And and that's how these businesses are diversifying what they're offering, right? And the Patch, they used to have a newspaper that got bought by a larger company, and now there's a vacuum of a printed newspaper locally. So now the town spends tons of money on Lowell Sun, and they saw that as an opportunity to launch their own newspaper as a nonprofit and become the. So anyway, so there are different things that different places are doing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, in fact, Fitchburg TV is really making a push for journalism and doing news programs. And we would love to do that. We just don't have the resources. We are doing so many government meetings and producing, a handful of shows. We don't have someone to go out and do news. So, that would be a nice to have in the future, for sure. But yeah, that seems to be the trend right now.
Does like Verizon or Dish or like Charter, do they not contribute to PEG?
Not in Lunenburg. We don't have Verizon as a cable provider in most of Lunenburg. There are a few people that do have it, but we're not contracted with them for public access.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that is the last of the presentations from departments this evening.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public?
I know you said you didn't have the agenda up. That might still be the case. You have a couple items on old business before we have public comment.
Jen, usually after part of
Oh, on the
presentation,
department presentations, comment on
Yes.
the presentations. Yes.
Right.
John, we seem to have someone who wants.
John,
You're on mute, John. If you're
Oh, I
speaking.
figured that out real quick. Thanks, Tom.
Name and address. You gotta give your name and address too.
162 Highland Street, Lunenburg. This is John Bowen. Hope everybody's doing good. I enjoyed both presentations, only a couple of concerns. I agree with Anna on the library presentation. I don't think Mr. Muir, he casually dismissed Ms. Lockwood's directive, which was give me an itemized line by line of what you're spending money on. Not just give me a round number to say, oh, we buy these books. Well, what books? What kind of books? What type of books? and what kind of programming, what type of programming, how much does that cost? That presentation was extremely general. And in any kind of a presentation, if it's general, it should be given very minimal weight as far as what kind of money gets placed out without further review. I know that from experience. More information. The secondary issue that I have is with the PAC fund. 160 cities and towns in Massachusetts are of PEG groups, which are what they call PEG by the state, are nonprofits. They raise their own money. I made these recommendations with the Cemetery Commission, if you remember last year, to turn that into an association of nonprofits to generate more money that takes money away from the taxpayer from having to pay for upkeep and maintenance by providing other services. With the PEG fund and the bill that she's talking about, if you remember, they brought that up in 2023, 2024 season. That died in committee. This one has gone for the third reading. It's in the Senate. It was proposed by the Senate. It still needs to go to engrossment. And once it gets to engrossment, it has to go to the House. So it didn't originate in the House, it originated in the Senate. Then the House has to go through a 3-month process. Right now it's March. In February 12th, it went to, it hasn't even made engrossment, and it's only had its third reading February 12th. It's about 90 days out from the time that the House of Representatives gets it to be able to approve it. And right now, the state's into budget talks, and anything after April, if you look at the legislative calendar, that's going to die again this year. It's not able to meet the volume that is on the legislative calendar. So that being said, don't anticipate that that money is coming anytime soon. If PAC wants to expand, there are a number of different nonprofits out there. I know somebody, I think it was Tom, I don't think you mentioned it. One of the members mentioned something about what kind of donations, what kind of, does Verizon give money? Does this? There's a number of different groups, organizations out there that feed nonprofits like that. Obviously, public broadcasting has been cut by the federal government, but you have places like, let me see, I pulled up a couple of names just to kind of give you a rough view. Just bear with me a second. In any case, I'm looking, I have a lot of stuff open here. Hold on. Most 160 television stations, like I said, are nonprofits. The money that gets given to pay groups like NBC Universal gives local impact grants. Press Forward, a national coalition of 100 funders, including the MacArthur and Knight Foundations, committed more than $500 million to revitalize local newsrooms. You want to open a newsroom, there's your $500 million grant. Public Media Bridge Fund and Emergency Response Fund lodged in 2025 to stabilize public media stations, gave over $26 million to nearly 200 stations nationwide. American Public Television, $2.9 million grant to help local TV stations compete, distribute locally produced content to a national audience. National Endowment for the Humanities, obviously we know what they're supporting. And the affiliated local media foundations that fund legislative journalism. So there's a number of ways to be able to generate money by spending the money. If they want more money, let's give them more money to be able to incorporate as a nonprofit, to pay for grants writing, to be able, I think we already have a grant writer on staff, to be able to, solicit these grants to continue to fund it independently and stop relying on the taxpayer and on the state of Massachusetts to pass a bill. Right now, they're asking for 5% of streaming services, and I don't think there is one resident that wants to pay an additional fee or tax, like Massachusetts likes to swap them, okay, for streaming services to be able to provide local cable services. I'm just mentioning that just as an outcome. I think local cable services are excellent. I went to Emerson College. I was on ERS radio. I get it. So, it's not that I'm against it, but there are other options. And I don't think that they're looking at those other options. And they brought the same thing up 2023, 2024. And I can't say that we should be funding them any more money until they
Don't
start
fund
looking
them.
in a different direction.
John, the town doesn't fund their operations at all.
Not at all. No, I know it comes from the, I know it comes from,
I just wanted
cable
to,
company. Yeah, no, I know it comes from the cable company, but they have asked for buffers.
Right.
I-
John, I
no.
think you're on the, I think you have a lot to say, and I think maybe you might want to talk to, PAC
To Joe,
directly, yeah. And I think, you know, what we were suggesting, that they think about the long term, because this
Absolutely.
is not a thing for today or tomorrow, or even for fiscal year 27. This is over the next, I think Anna mentioned, the next 5 or 10 years.
Correct.
Major disruptions are happening in these kind of things, and changes have happened. So, you know, so maybe you want to direct that information and that energy towards them to see what they can do. But I think
Correct.
we should move on, and because we got a few more items on our calendar to
Sure,
go
I'm
through.
just, like I said, I agree with that. And, you know, like,
Yep.
I can feed that over to Joe. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
What I'm
great.
saying is that I think that, you know, we have to start thinking, like you said, in a different direction, but we have to have more focus on that direction. This bill has already been through one season.
Right.
Now we're in another season. It's not going to happen. We can't keep relying on the state to pick up our pieces. This is why we're $3 million in the red, because we were relying on the state to pay for our schools, and then they didn't. It's one thing after another. We have to start taking care of ourselves much
all
better.
right, we just gotta, thank you, John.
Thank
Thank you.
All right. Jean, next
Yeah.
item on the agenda is potential FY 27 proposed 2.5 override.
Yep.
I only say that because you said you didn't have
I just looked it up on my phone.
oh, okay. I was just trying to help you. Okay.
Thank you. So did anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, Jay, you go ahead. I thought you were
I
starting.
would, no, I was gonna say not tonight.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought,
okay.
Well,
But if you have a comment, go ahead.
are we going to talk about that at the tri-board meeting, whenever that's going
We
to
are.
be? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well-
that, I think that's probably
The tri-board
Um,
meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, March 10th. The select board meeting got moved up to 6 PM, so the tri-board meeting is gonna start at 7:30. So it's at 7:30 in the Bellotta Meeting Room at the second floor of Town Hall. If it is still weather by the second week of March and we have to go to Zoom, I don't know what I'm gonna say about that. So from 7:30 to the hard stop at 10, there is public comment on the front end and the back end of the agenda, and this is the FY 27 budget and Proposition 2.5 override are the only items on that agenda.
so, I do want to say a couple of things about this. And I'll preface it by saying why. I think we as a committee need to have I would like us as a committee to have a standing of how what we think a direction we would like to go, because I know the school committee is coming with with their position that they wanted the restoration budget. And and Jen has asked for a few things, not much. I've been going through Jen's spreadsheet, doing my own color coding. And I think there are two big items that stands there is the 4th shift for the fire department. I wanted to also highlight that the fire department is asking for an extra person on their 16-hour shift. So I do see the fire department's request as it is now is two different things. One is add another staff doing their regular shift and adding a 4th shift. The DPW has a request for more money to start meeting more of the MS4 permit.
Stormwater.
Yeah, stormwater. Jen is requesting, as it is now, a assistant town manager. And the other thing is she has an added person to work with the DPW to alleviate Sam, who works there. And so anyway, so if I could go on for a little bit, because I have a lot of information in my head, because I did spend some time today looking at the budget. The school committee budget, their restoration budget, incorporates that $500,000 that we assigned to them in our town meeting budget as part of their current budget. And they also, in the beginning of the year, they looked at their expenses and they had hired, I think, 3 new positions from just moving their budget around, which they have the right to. So their level service budget, it is approximately $800,000 above what we have, what was funded at town meeting in their operating budget. The restoration budget is another $1 million on top of that. And I'm giving round numbers here. And I have a lot of concerns about how we have talked about how, people that wanted an override, what they wanted, how they wanted the override to be. And my main concern right now is, for the most part, Jen's budget, it is level service budget, except for the things that I called out. The school budget is a much bigger ask, is a restorative, as they're calling, restoration budget. And I, one thing we heard a lot on the school presentation was her, she talked about inflation, how the dollars don't stretch as far, especially when she spoke about grants. But that's the reality for everybody. I think we are living in a high inflationary times. Not everyone's getting, the raises that way they used to get. I think everybody's buying power has been diminished. That's a fact. And I'm happy to pull up data and show that to anyone who'd like that. I have flashbacks of 2012 when I had a son that was going to be a sophomore in high school, and my daughter was a freshman. And the town requested, times were tight, and the town and the schools made a really big ask for the override, and it failed. And it failed big. It was 2-1. It was we had over 2,000 votes no, and a little over 1,000 votes of yes. And that was devastating for everybody. It was devastating for the schools, and it was devastating to town services. The hours that Mir just talked about it, that we were able to open in the library on Fridays in 2023, were the hours that were cut in 2012. It took a decade for that. And this didn't just impact the town. The schools, the town employees had to take a 10% cut. That's when the majority of our employees went from 40 hours to 36 hours. I know the senior center had to cut hours as well. And I am really worried about that restoration budget and wanting to put all our budgets, this level service override as one item on the agenda. And then that fail because people are not in the time to spend more. The inflation is affecting everybody. And I feel like, it's one thing to ask me for the level service budget, but now there's another $1 million on top of that. And if that was going to be the case, I think we need to break up the requests and let each department make their own case for why they want an override and why now is the right time. But I think it's extremely, extremely dangerous for the students of the Lunenburg Public Schools to only have the restoration budget as an option. So for the town side, I would hope that the select board, if the school department is coming for a restoration budget, I hope the select board will put the town requests as separate and let the departments explain their request and let the schools explain their requests. And I think the school department to come in with just a restoration budget is playing Russian roulette with public education. And I am appalled that they're taking that much of a risk. I think it's one thing to say we're gonna ask for another $900,000, similar to what it was the last 2 years ago. And I think that is one thing. And I think asking another million, and make it in one thing, making just one request, there is a great chance of failure. And that's going to be that will affect the students beyond, probably as bad as it was in 2012. And I think the town is being, the request that the towns had, that the Jen's budget has, is, I'm just going to say Jen's budget, sorry, Jen, is very targeted things. And I think we can explain them. And I wouldn't mind if we split them. If we say this is for the fire department, this is for, stormwater. But put that with a restoration budget. This is not the time to do that. People are hurting, and it's young people, and it's older folk that live in, fixed income. And I hope that, we as a finance committee can have a discussion about this and gather our thoughts and be able to present something of a unified view of how we feel about how these overrides are going to be structured on the tri-board.
I don't know if we can cut this. Well, we don't have Chris or Mike with us right now, but I think we can have. I don't know if we'll ever come up with a unified thing. I think we can have our voices heard at the tri meeting on March 10th. I don't disagree, Anna, with what you're saying as far as, what is, is the school asking for too much? And if they are, will it fail? I don't pretend like I know what the vote will look like, either at the town meeting or if that wins with the electorate. But it is a hard ask for that amount of money at this time. It might pass, it might not, I don't know. I think I'm a statistical guy at heart, and I would say that the odds would be better if they reduced their ask and presented a smaller budget increase, which could be probably more palatable to the community, which would give it a better chance of passing. I too do not want to see a override fail because that would mean drastic cuts across the boards, and that would not be a good thing for the town, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Jay, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, they all have big asks. As someone that's on the retirement end of the scale, during the tax debacle of 2023, there were numerous waterfront property owners that saw a significant increase in property taxes. And I don't have an appetite for an increase in my taxes. And I'm hearing that from other people. There are, 12,000 residents, 8,000 taxpayers, and 1,600 students in the schools. So 8,000 taxpayers are supporting 1,600. Everybody gets a paycheck. They know what it is, and you have to live within your means. And everything, the cost of doing business is going up for everybody. The cost of real estate, the cost of rentals, it's affecting everybody. Increasing people's taxes, really have to ask, how does it benefit the taxpayers? We have a town hall that's only open 4 days a week, and with the holidays only open 3 days a week. How does that benefit taxpayers? And people, that's the question I'm hearing. What am I getting for my tax dollar?
Right.
I think an override is going to be incredibly hard to sell that amount of money. So yeah, there are, if it doesn't go through, they're going to be hard consequences. Sometimes, you know, a town needs a reset. So, they're gonna
Well,
be-
I think we have to ask, what kind of town do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a town where stormwater is a constant threat? Do we want to live in a town where the fire department can't respond because their people have had enough? Or their people are going to leave because they're overworked? Do we want to have a town where students are disadvantaged? Now, I don't disagree that maybe the school committee should work with the superintendent and try to ratchet down their ask. But if we want to live in a town that we can be proud of, that we feel like we have a vested interest in, I think we have to ask for an override, and it's just a matter of what that ask is.
Right. And that's what I said, like, you know, I've been reviewing Jen's budget line by line, and and I was texting her earlier asking. So I agree with you, and that's my concern with the level of ask and bundling as one option. You know, as a way to force people, you know, I don't like that. And I know that's the preference of the schools, but when we're talking about, you know, a very trimmed service, one that, you know, like is giving a fourth shift, like to firefighters, like that should have been, according to their schedule, come online in 2021. When we're dealing with, you know, just like doing the street sweeping and cleaning of the catch basins, you know, the bare minimum mandated that the federal, actually in that case is the federal government, versus a, you know, a restoration budget. And, you know, and I'm gonna still have I have follow-up questions to the school department. So it's really, you know, it's a multi-layer question, right, Jean, that I was proposing is, you know, what is that number? What are that we are asking? What is the level of things that we're asking? And then the possibilities of failure by asking too much, because that's what happened in 2012.
Right. Well, I agree with you, Anna. But
Yeah.
again, I think that is up to the school committee to talk with the superintendent to pare down what their ask is.
Right. Well, and that's where, you know, we are just an advisory committee, and it seems that, you know, from the 4 people that are here, we're in similar, we view us similarly, that, you know, we feel like we would rather have a trimmed down ask more that stays in level service, and you know, so that we can continue slowly but progressing towards, you know, a more ideal scenario. So yeah.
You know, the most of it is in the school side because that's most of the budget and that's where a lot of the things are. But yeah, and some of the fourth shift of the fire department, I know they've been doing a lot of work on trying to get that information out to the community. That's you know, that's something I think the select board has said that they think is important. And I'm not sure about the town manager's position, but I think I've heard a lot of people in the town's government saying that they think that's important. You know, but they could, you know, when I asked the question the other day about the fire, they wanted to promote somebody to a lieutenant to serve as the officer on the fourth shift. And I said, well, the current fourth shift, do you have a lieutenant who works that time? And they said, well, they have somebody on call. Well, you know, maybe that's a cut you can make. Maybe you don't have added another, you know, you don't promote somebody as a lieutenant. You maybe wait a couple of years, see how it works. That's a show of faith to the town that you're willing to bite the bullet a bit.
And also, on
But
that
there's
one,
a-
they're adding another person to their shifts. Like right now, they have 3 people, 3 career firefighters, and they're adding a 4th. There'll be a per diem person.
Jen, do you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I want to correct just Tom. I think you misunderstand a little bit, and maybe I know the fourth shift fire presentation has now been uploaded to YouTube. Folks may want to revisit that again. There is no fourth shift currently. There are 3 shifts. Each have an officer on the shift. So if we create a fourth shift, that shift will need an officer. But I think that that's probably overly simplified. But I would just encourage you to go and revisit that presentation.
well, is that physically there or on call? That was, when I asked that question, because they were
that's
talking about,
So currently, there's 3 shifts. Each shift has an officer. On the Sunday shift, there's no career shift on Sundays.
right,
So there's an officer on call on Sundays. When we move, or if we move to 4 shifts, Sundays get covered with career staff. I think it's helpful to look at the graphics of the presentation that go along with the words that I'm saying so that you can see how
Right.
that changes. Because
okay, I'll take a look
there's-
at that.
Yeah, right now there's not a shift on Sundays, and there would be a shift on Sundays.
Right,
So the
but-
officer on call entirely goes away if there is a 4th shift. The officer on call is only because there is no career staff on Sunday. Anna's point is something different about shifting the per diem staffs.
Right, and that's that's like, I don't know, I just want to separate it, and I'm not negating, like, Jen, I asked you for the data on that. It's, but anyway, so this was good. I got what I wanted, was for us to have a conversation on what we've seen so far, and I appreciate you guys entertaining me for this conversation on 2.5. Thank you.
Did anybody have a chance to look at the minutes from 2-5
No.
and 2-12?
I haven't read them yet either.
Yeah, no,
Okay, then we'll just do that next week. Committee reports from anybody?
We're gonna have another municipal building committee, meeting on Monday. That's the first one in a while, so, anybody who wants, it's gonna be a Zoom like this one, so anybody that wants to, listen, check I think the agenda is on the town website. It'll be Monday at 5:30.
Anyone else?
Nope.
Any topics for future meetings?
nope.
Any public comment? Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Roll call
Get a
vote.
group vote.
Yep. Tom,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
aye.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, thank you.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.